My brother laughed after ruining my $5,000 suit. The next day, his job offer disappeared. Guess who his new boss was? You know that feeling when you realize the person you've spent your entire life protecting is actually the one trying to tear everything down? That gut-wrenching moment when you understand that accidents weren't accidents at all, but calculated moves designed to break you? Well, that was my reality, and it plunged me into a war I never wanted to fight, but absolutely had to win. For most of my 31 years, my name, Alex, might as well have been responsible older brother. I was the dependable one, always on time, bills paid, promises kept, picking up the pieces when the family inevitably dropped them. Then there's my younger brother, Tyler. 26, impulsive, a walking drama magnet, and somehow he always failed upwards. When we were kids, he was a master of chaos, smashing mom's favorite vase and blaming me, forging notes in my name to skip class, even burning through my car's gas tank in high school without asking. Every single time, Mom would just sigh and say, "He's still growing, he doesn't mean any harm." Then she'd turn to me and lecture me about needing to be a better example. I honestly thought it would balance out eventually. That as adults, Tyler would finally grow up. I pictured us laughing about our messed up childhoods, mature enough to let go of old grudges. I even imagined him apologizing for something, anything, and us finally meeting halfway. But I guess some people don't grow up. They just get taller. Now, my life is pretty structured. I work in consulting, a job where punctuality and reputation are king. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. I worked hard, saved smart, and built a life that felt calm and reliable. A few months ago, I proposed to my incredible girlfriend, Julia, and she said yes. She's everything Tyler isn't: grounded, kind, thoughtful. Her dad, Mark, is a high-level executive at a firm that's a huge deal in our city. I didn't even know that when we first met him. He was just Julia's dad, a soft-spoken guy with a dry wit and an encyclopedic knowledge of vintage cars. Over time, we got close. He respected my work ethic, and we'd have these long, deep conversations about leadership, career paths, even family. He never pushed, but he asked the kind of questions that let me open up without feeling judged. I didn't know how much of our talk stuck with him until much later. As the wedding approached, Julia and I scheduled our engagement photo shoot. I'd gone all out for it, a tailored, deep navy custom suit from a designer I'd admired for years. It wasn't just a suit, it was a symbol, in a weird way, of the man I was becoming, of how far I'd come. It cost $5,000, which, yeah, is ridiculous for clothes, but it was a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and Julia encouraged it. "You deserve to feel amazing in it," she told me. So, I splurged. It arrived the week before the shoot, crisp in its garment bag, untouched. That Saturday, we had a small family brunch at my parents' house before the shoot. Julia and I were going to head straight from there to the location, a beautiful old estate with natural light and brick archways. Julia had her dress in the car, and my suit was carefully hung in the back seat. I wasn't planning on taking it out until we got to the shoot, but of course, my mother insisted. "Come on, let us see it. You'll just change here." What's the difference? I should have said no. I should have known better. But I caved. I went out to the car, brought it in, and carefully unpacked it. The moment I pulled it out, everyone turned to look. Even my dad, who usually never noticed fashion, raised an eyebrow and gave a nod of approval. "That's sharp," he said. Julia beamed, so proud. My mom commented on the fabric, and then Tyler piped up. He whistled. "Dude, this thing looks expensive. How much did this set you back?" I just shrugged. "Enough." Tyler smirked. "You always were the try-hard." That was his nickname for me growing up. Try hard. I didn't take the bait. I just smiled and moved to hang the suit near the window, away from the food and chaos. I just wanted it untouched before the shoot. Tyler, naturally, had to be the center of attention. He launched into some story about a limited edition motorcycle he wanted to buy, with way more horsepower than he could handle. "I found one listed for a steal," he said, eyes flicking towards me. "Only problem is I'm short on cash. I need about $6,000 more." Julia raised an eyebrow. I kept sipping my coffee, bracing myself. "I figured," he went on, Since you've been dropping cash on fancy suits and all, maybe you'd help a brother out. He said it like a joke, like it was funny, but his eyes didn't blink. I responded calmly. No, Tyler. I'm not loaning you $6,000 for a bike. Oh, come on, he said, louder now. It's not like you're strapped. You make good money. You spend more on dry cleaning than I do on rent. I didn't say anything. That silence was my answer. He scoffed, took a sip of his wine, red wine, mind you, and looked straight at me. Whatever, man. Don't ruin the mood. We're celebrating, right? That's when it happened. Like a switch flipped in him. He leaned back in his chair, stretched a bit too dramatically, and accidentally knocked over his glass. The red wine arced in slow motion. I didn't even have time to react. It splashed across the right sleeve and lapel of the suit, soaking the fabric, blooming like a wound. There was this dead, awful silence in the room. Tyler's face twisted into this fake surprise. Oh no, he dragged the words. I'm so clumsy. Then he burst out laughing. Relax, bro. It's just a suit. My jaw clenched. I stared at the fabric, the stains seeping into the threads. Julia stood up immediately, trying to dab it with a napkin. My mother? She just waved a hand. Don't make a scene, Alex. It's an accident. Was it? I said quietly. Tyler shrugged, still laughing. What? You think I did it on purpose? Chill out. You can afford another one. I didn't yell. I didn't even respond. I just turned, picked up the ruined suit, and walked out the front door. Julia followed. She didn't say anything either. She didn't have to. We canceled the shoot that day. There was no saving the fabric. I called the designer, but a replacement wasn't possible in time, and it wasn't refundable. Later that night, I sat in our apartment, staring at the suit crumpled in the dry cleaner's plastic. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. No hard feelings, right? You look ridiculous in that suit. Faced with tears of joy, I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened my messages, scrolled down to Mark, Julia's dad, and typed out a message I never thought I'd send. Hey, quick heads up. You know that new junior consultant you mentioned you were hiring Monday? Tyler, last name. That's my younger brother. His response came 3 minutes later. Got it. Thanks for letting me know. The next morning, at exactly 9:12 a.m., Tyler's world shifted. I didn't hear it firsthand, I didn't have to. But the notification he received lit the fuse for everything that came next. And what happened after that? Well, let's just say the real revenge was only getting started. If Tyler was upset that his job offer got revoked, he didn't show it immediately. In fact, he didn't even mention it at first. It was Mom who brought it up a few days later, as casually as if she were commenting on the weather. We were having Sunday lunch again. Same house, same dining table, same passive-aggressive undertones. Julia didn't come with me this time. She claimed she had errands, but I knew she just didn't want to sit through another afternoon of backhanded jabs and unspoken favoritism. I didn't blame her. If I hadn't been raised in that house, I wouldn't have believed how subtle yet constant the dynamic was. Tyler didn't have to do much to stay the golden child. Just exist, basically. Mom was slicing into her roast chicken when she glanced up and said, "Did you hear about Tyler's job offer getting pulled?" Apparently, the company just ghosted him. No reason. Isn't that awful? I didn't look up from my plate. Huh, I said as neutrally as I could. Tyler gave a bitter laugh. Yeah, weirdest thing. 1 minute I'm in, the next minute I'm getting a canned email saying, we're going in a different direction. No call, no explanation, nothing. I even quit my old job already. Mom made a sympathetic noise. Some companies have no loyalty. It's disgusting. He would have been such an asset to them. My dad, mostly quiet during these things, muttered, well, maybe they Googled you. Tyler threw a piece of bread at him. Haha, keep it coming, old man. I didn't say anything. I just kept eating, and that, apparently, was enough to make me the villain. Mom narrowed her eyes at me. You haven't said a word to support your brother. You're usually the first to offer advice. I shrugged. Sounds like he has it under control. Tyler leaned forward. You think I messed it up, don't you? You think I did something wrong. I looked up then. Did you? He scoffed and sat back in his chair, arms crossed. You know, Ever since you got engaged, you've been walking around like you're better than everyone. That one actually made me laugh. You think I'm the one acting superior? Yeah, he said, pointing his fork at me like it was a sword. You never used to be this smug. You used to help me out. Remember when I crashed your car and you covered for me? Or when I needed help with that community college app and you stayed up all night? I remember, I said. And you still dropped out halfway through the semester. He bristled, but Mom jumped in. That's not fair. He was going through a tough time. You were always more academic, Alex. That was always the excuse, wasn't it? Tyler didn't fail. The world failed him. And me? I was the default fixer, the one who had to explain, clean up, compensate. And now that I'd stopped playing that role, suddenly I was the one changing. Later that day, Tyler pulled me aside in the driveway as I was leaving. Hey, he said, his voice lower. Seriously? Did you say something to those people? The job? Did you take it? I looked at him, really looked at him, and for a second I saw it. Not the arrogant smirk, but something underneath. A flicker of suspicion, of realization. Why would I do that? I asked calmly. He stared at me for a moment longer before shaking his head and chuckling. Right, just checking. But I could tell something in him shifted. The seed had been planted. A few days later, Mom texted me about helping Tyler out with some bills. He's struggling now that he's between jobs. Just a few hundred to help with rent. You know how it is. I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the screen. There was no please, no acknowledgement of what had happened with the suit or the job or the constant disrespect. Just another request for me to play the part. I didn't respond. The next morning, she sent another message. You've changed, Alex. Family supports each other. I don't know what's gotten into you lately. I didn't answer that one either. That weekend, I got an invitation to a family dinner. Mom's words, not mine. The kind she only hosts when she wants to smooth things over. I almost declined, but Julia said something that stuck with me. You don't have to go for them, she said. But if you go, make sure you see it for what it is, not what you wish it was. So I went. Same house, same kitchen, smelled like lemon cleaner and overcooked potatoes. Same jokes from my dad, same fake smiles from Tyler. But this time, there was a sharpness underneath it all. Tyler was quieter than usual, not sulking, but watching, studying me. Mom poured me a glass of wine, white this time, and said sweetly, so Alex, tell us more about your wedding plans. We want to help however we can. I paused. You do? Of course, she said. We're family, and you've always been so generous. You're practically floating us already with everything you do. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. Tyler leaned forward. Still planning to do that thing at the estate with the brick archways? I nodded. He smirked. Nice. Hope nothing ruins it. There was a beat of silence, too long to be accidental. Julia reached under the table and touched my knee. I smiled at Tyler. Yeah, I hope so, too. Because in that moment, I knew something he didn't. See, Mark had called me the day after Tyler's job offer was pulled, not just to confirm, but to ask if I wanted him to pass Tyler's resume around to other firms. I told him not to. But what I didn't tell anyone, not Julia, not even Mark, was that I'd started keeping notes quietly, carefully, over the years. Records of every time I'd bailed Tyler out, transfers, emails, texts, receipts, notes on conversations, times he'd lied, taken advantage, disrespected me or others. All of it. At first, I saved them out of habit. Then I realized they had power. Because Tyler wasn't just careless. He was reckless. And people like that, they always leave trails. I just needed the right time. And that time was coming fast. But before that, Tyler still had one more card to play, one more move to make. And when he did, everything would come crashing down. It started with a phone call from Julia while I was at work. One of those mid-afternoon calls that make your stomach sink before you even answer. I stepped out of my office, pressing the phone to my ear, already bracing. Hey, I said quickly. Everything okay? There was a pause, then her voice, low and tight. Did you tell your mom where we're getting the cake? I blinked. The cake? The bakery? I know you mentioned it to your brother a while back, but did you tell your mom recently? No, I said slowly, walking toward the stairwell for privacy. Why? She let out a sharp breath. Because I just got off the phone with them. Apparently, someone claiming to be me called and canceled our order. Said we'd changed our minds and we're going with someone else. My mouth went dry. What? Yeah. They said the woman was rude. Said she didn't have time to argue and that they should refund the deposit immediately. The only reason they called me was because it didn't sound like me, and they wanted to double-check. I closed my eyes, hand gripping the stair rail. Julia, I didn't want to believe it. But then I checked our wedding planning email account. Someone tried to reset the password last night. It didn't go through. I have two-factor on everything, but they tried. We stood in silence for a second, the reality settling between us. It was them, I said. I don't know who exactly, she replied, voice calm but wounded. But it was someone who doesn't want this wedding to happen the way we planned. Someone who wants to ruin it piece by piece. The call ended soon after. She was on her way to the bakery in person to reassure them we were still on. I offered to leave work, but she told me no. Said I should stay calm, that we'd handle it together. But inside, I wasn't calm. I felt something shift in me. Not rage. I'd felt flashes of that before. This was colder, still focused. A different kind of betrayal needs a different kind of response. That night, I drove to my parents' house. Alone. I told myself I wasn't going to accuse anyone outright. I just wanted to ask, to look them in the eye. Tyler was in the garage, pretending to organize a bunch of tools he didn't know how to use. When I walked up, he gave me that fake brother grin he always wore like armor. Yo, what's up, Sue man? I have a question, I said. He glanced at me sideways. Shoot. Did you call our bakery? He paused just a half second, and that was enough. His mouth opened, but the smirk faltered. What bakery? Our wedding bakery, Tyler. To cancel the cake. His laugh was too loud, too quick. You think I care about your stupid cake? I didn't say anything. I just stared. He wiped his hands on a towel, shook his head. You're seriously paranoid, man. You think I'm sabotaging your wedding now? I took a step closer. If you ever touch anything related to my wedding again, we're done. He tilted his head. Wow. So, that's where we are now? Going to disown your own brother over a cake. I'd disown you over a napkin at this point. He stepped back, arms up. Okay, relax. I didn't touch your bakery. All right? But maybe your precious little fiancé should double-check her passwords. That was it. He didn't admit it, not directly, but the grin said enough. The way he said fiancé, like it left a bad taste in his mouth. He wanted me to know. He wanted me to guess and stew, to feel helpless. That was his game. I walked away, got in my car, sat in the driveway with the engine off for 20 minutes. When I got home, Julia was already there. She was on the couch, laptop open, emails pulled up. Alex, she said, come look at this. She showed me a trail of activity, failed logins, password reset attempts, even a fake email posing as our venue trying to confirm cancellation. I sat next to her, numb, and then she said something I'll never forget. This isn't just immaturity anymore. This is sabotage. She was right. The next day, things got worse. Julia's parents had invited us over for dinner. We assumed it was wedding-related, finalizing some details, maybe picking floral arrangements. When we arrived, Mark sat us down with a strange look on his face. He slid his phone across the table. On the screen was a screenshot of an email sent from a brand new Gmail address. No name, just a burner. Subject, you should rethink the groom. The message was short but vicious. A few sentences laced with lies about my past, my character, suggesting I had a gambling problem. I've never gambled a day in my life. That I cheated on Julia in college, also a lie. And that I'd only ever used her to get close to powerful people. No proof. No signature. But Mark wasn't stupid. Did you do anything recently? He asked calmly. That might have made someone upset? Julia looked at me. I looked at the floor. Mark leaned back. We traced the IP. It was sent from your parents' neighborhood. That's as far as we could get. The world went quiet in my head for a moment. They didn't just mess with my suit or my cake. They tried to turn her family against me. This wasn't sibling rivalry anymore. This was war. That night, I opened my locked Dropbox folder. The one I hadn't touched in years. The one labeled, just in case. I scrolled past old transfers, unsaved text conversations, screenshots of Tyler begging for money, even audio clips of him drunk at family gatherings saying things I wish I could forget. But one file caught my eye, a voice memo from 3 years ago. Tyler, laughing, saying, I could burn Alex's life down in a day if I wanted. Dude's too nice to fight back. I stared at it for a long time, and I realized I wasn't too nice anymore. Because this wasn't about the job or the cake or the wedding. This was about trust. Shattered, stomped on, and mocked. And now it was my turn. But first, I needed one more piece of confirmation, one final trigger. And Tyler, true to form, gave it to me in the most spectacularly stupid way possible, by going after Julia directly, publicly, at a family brunch the following weekend while she was pouring orange juice in front of everyone. And what he said, that was the moment everything finally broke. The brunch was supposed to be low-key, just a casual get-together at my parents' place with bagels, fruit platters, and lukewarm coffee. It was the kind of thing Mom threw together whenever she wanted to pretend everything was fine, as if by forcing everyone into the same room with cinnamon rolls, she could glue the cracks shut with frosting. Julia didn't want to go. After the bakery sabotage, the email to her dad, and the growing storm of stress swirling around our wedding, she was exhausted, emotionally, mentally, and physically. But she also didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing us flinch. So we went. We agreed to stay no longer than an hour, say our hellos, eat our muffins, and leave. For a while, things were bearable. My mom chirped on about flower arrangements and seating charts, carefully avoiding any mention of the recent chaos. Dad watched the news on low volume, only looking up to refill his coffee. Tyler was unusually quiet. He hadn't cracked a single joke or made a single jab. If anything, he seemed amused, like he knew something we didn't. Then Julia got up to pour herself a glass of orange juice. She was mid-pour when Tyler, leaning back in his chair like he owned the world, casually said, "So, Julia, how's your ex?" The entire room froze. Even the TV news anchor paused on a still frame like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. Julia blinked. "Excuse me?" Tyler smiled wide, eyes twinkling with mischief. "Your ex? The one from college? What was his name again, Liam? Pretty sure I saw him comment on one of your Instagram photos the other day. Little heart emoji, wasn't it?" The orange juice stopped midstream. Julia slowly put the pitcher down. "What are you talking about?" Tyler shrugged, still grinning. "I just find it interesting that you're so close with old flames. Like, if I were about to marry someone, I'd probably block all my exes, not swap flirty comments with them." I stared at him, heart pounding. I could see what he was doing. He was trying to stir doubt, plant seeds, not just in Julia's mind, but in everyone's. Julia stared at him for a second, then said coldly, "You went through my social media." Tyler leaned forward like a game show host revealing a prize. "Nah, just happened to be scrolling through mutuals." "I mean, your account's public, right? Anyone can see it." Mom, looking uncomfortable, cut in. "Tyler, that's enough." "No, it's not," he said, cutting her off. "I'm just saying, if the roles were reversed and Alex's ex-girlfriends were leaving hearts on his photos, I bet the whole table would have something to say." Julia opened her mouth, but I stood up before she could speak. "Don't," I said to her, voice low. "He's doing this on purpose." Tyler raised his eyebrows. Touchy. I turned to Mom. "Did you know he was going to do this?" She looked genuinely panicked. "I had no idea." "I swear." "Of course she didn't," Tyler said, still smiling. "It's not like I needed help to notice something sketchy." I turned back to him. "You're pathetic." He smirked. "And you're a doormat. Always have been." Julia took my hand. "Let's go." I nodded. We left. No goodbyes, no excuses. Just the sound of the screen door slamming behind us. Back in the car, she didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just stared straight ahead, face hard. "He's not trying to ruin the wedding," she said flatly. "He's trying to ruin us." She was right. This wasn't sabotage anymore. It was something deeper. Obsessive. Tyler didn't just want to hurt me. He wanted to hollow me out, to take everything I cared about and smear it, crack it, dismantle it in slow motion. That was my rock bottom. Not just because of what he'd said, but because for the first time, I saw the toll it was taking on Julia. She wasn't just hurt. She was tired of my family, of always having to be the bigger person, of watching me try to keep the peace while we got sucker punched over and over again. I couldn't protect her anymore by staying quiet. Silence wasn't noble. It was enabling. That night, we didn't talk much. I sat in our home office while Julia went to bed early, drained. I looked around at our wedding plans, the mood boards, the guest lists, the little color swatches pinned on the wall, all these fragile things we'd built, just waiting for someone like Tyler to stomp on. So, I made a decision. I opened my Dropbox again, this time with a different purpose. I started organizing the files, separating them by year, by incident, by format. Every bank transfer I made to cover Tyler's car repairs, every email he sent me asking for money, just this once. Screenshots of text messages where he threatened to expose me to my bosses after I refused to bail him out of a failed side hustle. The photos of my dented car from when he borrowed it without permission and sideswiped a fence, then blamed a stranger in a parking lot. Audio clips where he bragged to his friends about milking me for years because Alex doesn't know how to say no. I labeled the folder Insurance. And then I started a second folder. This one was for strategy contacts, people who knew Tyler from college, people he owed money to, former coworkers who quit his old jobs in frustration. One even filed an HR complaint. I hadn't cared before. I care now. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was preparation. Because I realized something as I sorted through every little receipt, every tiny insult I'd brushed off over the years. Tyler thought I was soft. He mistook patience for weakness, kindness for submission, boundaries for bridges he could burn. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I wasn't trying to fix him. I wasn't trying to earn my family's approval. I was planning my exit. And the only question left was whether I wanted to walk away quietly or take everything down with me. And right on cue, Tyler gave me the answer himself. 2 nights later, Julia's engagement ring, the one she left in the bathroom while washing her hands, vanished. And that was when I finally stopped holding back. The night the ring disappeared, everything changed. Julia wasn't the dramatic type. She didn't scream. She didn't throw things or call the police in a panic. She just stood there in the doorway of the bathroom, her hands trembling slightly, eyes wide with disbelief. I just set it down, she whispered. Right here. I always put it on the tray. I never leave it anywhere else. We searched everywhere. Tore the place apart. Trash cans, sink drain, vacuum bag, couch cushions. We checked our security camera footage, but the indoor cams only covered the entryways and common rooms. Nothing showed anyone entering or leaving. Julia hadn't even gone out that day. I knew what had happened. So did she. But we didn't say it out loud. Not yet. Instead, I emailed our building's manager and requested all front door key card logs for the past 2 days. Our apartment complex kept a record of every resident entry and exit tied to a digital fob. My hands were cold as I scrolled through the spreadsheet he sent. There it was, the entry, Tyler's fob. The timestamp matched a tower window when Julia had stepped out to grab groceries, and I was still at work. He'd been here. He still had the guest fob from months ago. He'd never returned it. I'd forgotten about it. The next morning, I filed a police report. Not because I expected them to recover the ring. I knew it was already gone. Sold. Pawned. Traded for some dumb motorcycle part or a weekend bar tab. I filed it because I needed documentation. That same day, I went into work early. I'd been holding on to a promotion opportunity for months, unsure if I should throw my hat in the ring. It was a director-level role, 1 step below partner, the kind of job that came with more visibility, more control, and more hours. Before, I'd hesitated. I was planning a wedding, trying to keep things balanced. But now I needed leverage. I walked into my boss's office and laid it out plainly. I was ready, more than ready. I brought a portfolio of my work, a breakdown of revenue growth from clients I'd managed, and a concise plan for how I'd improve team performance in the next 2 quarters. He nodded slowly as he flipped through it. "You've been flying under the radar for too long, Alex." "I won't anymore," I said. A week later, I got the call. The promotion was mine. I'd be managing 2 teams, overseeing client operations, and best of all, I'd have access to a few new high-level business circles. The kind of places where people like my future father-in-law didn't just exist. They thrived. That same week, Julia got an offer from a marketing firm she'd been eyeing for years. Higher pay, full creative control, remote flexibility. It came out of nowhere. A recruiter had reached out based on a campaign she'd worked on last fall. She almost turned it down. Too much stress lately. Too much noise. But I told her the truth. "Take it. Let's start saying yes to the things we've earned." We were rising, quietly, steadily. The world didn't notice right away, but we felt it. The shift. Our wedding plans moved forward. Julia's dad doubled down on his support. After the email stunt, he'd hired a private IT security consultant to comb through everything digital tied to our wedding. He even offered to fund an entirely new venue and planning team if we wanted to cut the family out completely. We declined, not because we forgave them, but because we had a different plan. You see, something else happened in the background while our lives were improving. People started talking. "Remember that file I'd made, the one labeled insurance?" I didn't publish it. I didn't post it online or send it to family members in a dramatic mass email. I leaked it slowly, carefully, to exactly the right people. Tyler's former employer, the one he claimed ghosted him. I knew a guy there, an old college friend who now worked in HR. I sent a few screenshots. Nothing aggressive, just a friendly heads up about a potential rehiring conflict. Julia's friend from law school worked at a firm where Tyler had recently applied for a consulting position. I made sure she received a copy of the voice memo where Tyler bragged about conning his way into high-paying roles. Then there was the motorcycle dealership, the one where he'd been trying to get financing for a new custom build, bragging about it on his Instagram stories. I sent the owner a polite, anonymous tip, linking a few financial red flags tied to Tyler's name. He got blacklisted from their finance program the next day. No drama, no confrontation, just doors quietly closing around him. Meanwhile, I reached out to the local jeweler association and discreetly offered a reward for any information about a distinctive emerald-cut engagement ring with a vintage setting. One that matched Julia's stolen one exactly. And finally, the one that made me feel something close to peace. I called our building manager and asked him to audit all FB activity for the last 6 months. Not just ours, everyone's. Because I had a theory, one I hadn't said out loud. What if this wasn't the first time? What if the ring wasn't the only thing Tyler had taken? The manager hesitated, but eventually agreed. And when he called me back 4 days later, his voice was grim. "Alex, your brother's fob was used multiple times during hours neither of you were home. One time, 2 hours after your cleaning lady logged out. Another, the day your router mysteriously crashed." I thanked him, hung up, sat in silence for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and began typing a letter to Tyler. Not a threat, not even a confrontation, just a list of everything I knew, everything I had, everything I could do and hadn't yet. I didn't send it. Not then. But I printed a copy and slipped it into an envelope because I was going to hand-deliver it at the exact moment he least expected it. And that moment was coming sooner than he thought because he'd just RSVP'd to our wedding and brought a +1, a name I recognized, his new girlfriend, who just happened to work at the same firm where I'd been promoted. And she didn't know a single thing about the man she was dating. I waited. That was the hardest part. Not acting, not confronting, not snapping at the dinner table or lashing out over text. Just waiting, watching, letting Tyler think he still had the upper hand, letting him assume I was still the same older brother he could poke and prod without consequence. The guy who'd always smooth things over for the sake of family. But while he posted filtered selfies with his new girlfriend captioned, "Leveling up 100 points," I was building something. Power in this world doesn't always come with fireworks or big titles. It comes in whispers, in leverage, in information, and I had plenty of it. Let's start with her, his new girlfriend, Marissa. On the surface, she was impressive. A polished, rising star consultant at one of the region's fastest-growing firms. She spoke 3 languages, had degrees from 2 elite universities, and here's the kicker, was recently transferred to a client-facing role for a major account. One of my accounts. The moment I saw her name in an email thread for a high-profile project I had just taken over, my pulse kicked up a notch. Not out of fear, but clarity. This wasn't coincidence. This was opportunity. I kept things professional, courteous. I even complimented her in a team-wide email after she'd pitched a solid idea in a brainstorming session. It caught her off guard. She responded kindly. No reason not to. I hadn't done anything yet. But she didn't know who I was. Not really. Tyler hadn't told her, which made sense. Why mention the boring big brother when he could spin some story about a solo climb through the corporate world? I let the threads connect themselves. Then one day, I accidentally let a meeting run a little long and struck up casual conversation afterward. She asked where I was from. I mentioned the city. She said it sounded familiar. I said I had a younger brother, Tyler. Her smile faltered. Wait, Tyler last name? I nodded. That's him. She blinked, clearly computing. Wow, small world. Very, I said. He's definitely memorable. She laughed awkwardly. Yeah, he is. He's told me a bit about you. Oh. I tilted my head. I'm curious. What did he say? She hesitated just a second too long. Just you know, that you're successful, driven, that you're the reason he tries so hard. That last part almost made me laugh. Try so hard. Tyler had never tried at anything unless there was a shortcut, but I didn't show it. I just smiled politely like an older brother full of quiet pride. Then I changed the subject and walked away, but not before dropping one last comment. By the way, I think it's great that you're with someone who values ambition. That can be rare. That planted the seed. From there, it spread on its own. A few days later, I got a Slack message from her, a follow-up about the project, but then a second message. Mind if I ask you something off the record? I told her to go ahead. She hesitated, then typed. Is it true Tyler never finished college? Oh, so the cracks were forming. I didn't answer directly. I just sent a link to a news article from 4 years ago. A police blotter. A bar fight involving a Tyler last name. No charges pressed, just a mention, but enough. She thanked me, didn't ask anything else. I didn't need to say more. The point wasn't to destroy him yet. It was to dismantle the illusion he'd built around himself, piece by piece, quietly, invisibly, until there was nothing left to stand on. But that wasn't the only play I was making. With the wedding approaching, I knew Tyler would try something big. He'd sabotaged the cake, tried to smear my reputation, stolen from my fiancé, and invaded our apartment. He wasn't going to sit quietly in a tux and clap politely. That wasn't who he was. So, I made a decision, one that surprised even me. I invited him to be part of the ceremony. Not his best man, no. That honor went to my oldest friend, Marcus, who'd seen me through college, career launches, and every one of Tyler's disasters. But I offered Tyler a reading. Just a short speech, a quote really, to be read during the ceremony. I framed it as an olive branch. He took the bait. Wow, he said over the phone, smug and suspicious. Didn't think you had it in you. I'm turning a new leaf, I told him. He laughed. Don't go soft on me, bro. Oh, if only he knew. You see, the wedding would be my stage. But the real revenge wasn't public. That was just the curtain call. The real work was already in motion. With help, 2 days after inviting Tyler to speak, I met with Julia's father, Mark, for lunch. We didn't go to a flashy restaurant or a stuffy steakhouse. We met at a quiet little cafe near his office. Neutral territory. I want to ask a favor, I said once we sat down. Mark set down his cup. Anything. I need to know if your firm still works with financial investigations. He raised an eyebrow. For corporate fraud, for personal patterns, I said carefully. I'm not asking you to break laws. Just if you can help me verify certain transactions. Quietly. He stared at me a moment, then nodded slowly. Send me what you have. So I did. Every bank transfer, every Venmo, every PayPal receipt to Tyler over the last 8 years. Thousands of dollars, always with a story. Rent shortfalls, phone bill emergencies, tuition lies, car repairs that didn't exist. Each one now organized, time-stamped, and cross-referenced with his social media posts. Half the time while I was paying off his late utilities, he was at festivals or flashing bottle service on his Instagram stories. Mark called me 3 days later. "You weren't exaggerating," he said flatly. "He's been laundering favors from you into appearances, but that's not the worst of it." I waited. "He's been using your name on several of his credit references." I went cold. "What?" "He didn't list your social, but he's implied co-signing. I've got at least 2 credit applications flagged where he used your employer and job title likely to boost his approval odds." I couldn't speak for a moment. "Can you get documentation?" I finally asked. I already did. And just like that, I had everything I needed. Proof of financial deception, proof of identity manipulation, a motive, a timeline, a pattern, and a file now growing that I could hand to every hiring manager, bank officer, or professional connection Tyler ever tried to con again. The rise wasn't about punishing him in one explosive moment. It was about surrounding him with a wall of quiet consequences he couldn't escape from, brick by brick. By the time he realized it, I'd be long gone. And just like that, with the wedding 2 weeks away and Tyler fully confident that he was back in my good graces, I sealed the final envelope. The one with all the evidence, the one with the letter, the one he'd open on the morning of my wedding, but not until after he gave his speech, because I wanted the world to hear the story he rehearsed right before they saw who he really was. The morning of the wedding was calm, almost too calm. Julia woke up first. I heard her padding around the suite in her slippers, humming softly as she brewed coffee. There was no sign of nerves in her voice, no tension in her posture, just grace. We decided not to do the whole "don't see the bride before the ceremony" thing. We weren't superstitious. Besides, this was a partnership built on trust, not tradition. The sky was a crisp blue outside the arched windows of the estate. The venue had come together beautifully. Soft cream florals lining the aisle, sunlight flooding through the courtyard, and candles waiting to be lit as dusk approached. The planner had outdone herself. The guests were already trickling in. My friend Marcus was downstairs greeting family and helping coordinate last-minute logistics. Everything felt right, and that's what made it so perfect, because Tyler didn't know he was walking into the most controlled moment of his life. He arrived late, naturally, 15 minutes before the ceremony, wearing an ill-fitted tux that clearly wasn't tailored. His hair was slicked back too aggressively, and he looked like he hadn't slept in a day. But he was smiling, confident, buzzing with the energy of someone who thought he had something planned. He greeted everyone loudly, cracked a joke about the catering staff, hugged my mother dramatically, and gave Julia a wink that made my jaw clench, but I held my smile. "Speech ready?" I asked him as we crossed paths by the bar. He grinned. "You'll love it. Thought I'd keep it real, you know." "Oh, I'm counting on it," I said. The ceremony began right on time. The music swelled. My heart raced when Julia stepped into view. She looked radiant. Doesn't even cover it. She was glowing, grounded, unshakable, like someone who had walked through fire and emerged perfectly intact. And in that moment, I felt something deeper than love. I felt resolve. No more hiding. No more letting people walk all over me because it was easier than causing waves. Today wasn't just about marriage. It was about closure. The ceremony moved along beautifully. Vows were exchanged. Rings were placed. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd when Julia whispered, "You're my piece." And then, as planned, the officiant smiled and said, "Before we pronounce this couple, they've invited a family member to share a special reading." Tyler stood up from the second row, smirking. He walked slowly up to the mic, adjusted his cuffs like he was about to give a TED Talk, and cleared his throat. "Love is patient," he began, adopting a faux reverent tone. "Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud." I watched him from the corner of my eye. Every word was delivered with a glint of irony. He wasn't reading scripture. He was mocking it, trying to come off as clever, subtle, winking at the people who didn't know him, waiting for his moment to twist the knife. And that's when it happened. Right as he reached the line, "It keeps no record of wrongs," a member of the staff walked up and handed him a sleek black envelope. He blinked, confused. Thanks." He glanced toward the back of the crowd, then back down at the envelope. "Is this a bit?" he asked, laughing awkwardly. "Y'all doing props now?" The officiant shook her head gently. "Please continue." But Tyler didn't. He opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, nothing more. I watched his eyes scan it. First with confusion, then alarm, then dawning horror. Because what he was reading was everything. A bullet-point summary of every transfer, every lie, every manipulation, neatly cataloged, sourced, and dated. At the bottom was a simple line. This was never about revenge. This was about truth. Read this carefully before your next job interview. His face turned pale. He looked up, looked straight at me. I raised my glass just a half-inch and gave him the smallest nod. And then he bolted. No dramatic exit. No screaming. Just turned and power-walked down the aisle like a man trying not to vomit at his own sentencing. The crowd murmured. A few relatives shifted in their seats, but no one really reacted. Not yet, because the real show came later. At the reception, I made a quiet announcement, just a brief toast. "I know many of you noticed my brother's early departure," I said, voice calm, measured. "There's no need for concern. He just received some overdue reading material." A few people laughed politely. I continued. "I believe weddings are about truth, about choosing who stands beside you in the years to come. And sometimes the hardest part of growing up is realizing which family you were born into and which one you build." That landed. Applause broke out. Julia squeezed my hand. But that wasn't the end. The real payoff happened over the next week. Tyler's girlfriend, Marissa, broke up with him 2 days after the wedding. Word got around that she found some inconsistencies in his stories. Apparently, she also received an anonymous email containing a few screenshots, ones I hadn't used publicly, but held back in case she ever wanted answers. She did. One by one, the walls closed in. The job application stalled, the motorcycle financing revoked, the wedding guests talking. Tyler stopped posting on social media. His name faded from family conversations. Even my mom, for once, didn't try to defend him. She just sighed and said, "I never thought it would come to this." And I looked her in the eye and replied, "It came to this because I let it. Because that's the truth." For years, I made peace to keep the peace until I realized some peace isn't worth keeping. And now I had mine. But one piece of the story still remained, the ring. And when it finally showed up again weeks later, it brought one final twist that even I didn't see coming. The ring was mailed back in a plain padded envelope. No return address. It arrived on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, tucked between wedding cards and a Bed Bath & Beyond gift receipt. No note, no apology, just the cold weight of the emerald-cut diamond in Julia's palm as we stood in the kitchen, staring at it in silence. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then Julia smiled, a small, tired smile. He finally realized he can't sell what doesn't belong to him. We didn't report it. The police case had already been closed. The evidence was still in our files, and the detective said if we ever wanted to press charges, we could, but honestly, we didn't need to, because the real punishment was already unfolding. Tyler vanished from social media within a week. Deleted everything. No more gym selfies, no rise and grind quotes, no stories from rooftop bars. Just gone. His friends stopped mentioning him. A few mutual acquaintances reached out to me quietly, asking, "Hey, did something happen?" I never answered directly. I didn't need to. I heard through the grapevine that he'd been turned down by 3 firms in a row, ones that had originally shown interest. Apparently, someone had flagged his application for inconsistent work history. And those financial institutions he used to brag about scamming for personal loans? They started calling hard. His girlfriend, ex now, moved to another city, took a new job, blocked him on everything. The last time I saw Tyler was at our parents' house 3 months later at a barely attended family barbecue. He looked thin, tired, worn down in a way that went deeper than exhaustion. He avoided my eyes most of the afternoon, kept to himself near the grill, and didn't say much. Eventually, I walked over. He didn't look up. "You got everything you wanted," he muttered, voice low and bitter. I shook my head. "No. I got everything you tried to ruin and kept it." He flinched like the word stung. Maybe they did. Maybe he thought I'd gloat or forgive him or offer a truce, but I didn't. Some bridges don't burn. They just rot slowly until no one can stand on them anymore. That was the last time we spoke. Life moved on. Julia and I bought a new place across town, one with a little garden and an office she turned into a studio. She hung the ring in a shadow box on the wall, not as a reminder of what happened, but as a symbol of what didn't break us. My career flourished. Her new job gave her the freedom she'd always wanted. We traveled, hosted dinners with chosen family, and built something real. Not because we were lucky, but because we stopped letting people treat us like they owned pieces of our peace. As for my parents, the silence grew. They stopped asking why I didn't show up to birthdays or group chats. Maybe deep down they knew. Maybe part of them had always known. It's hard to mourn a relationship that was always one-sided. But the best part? 1 year to the day after our wedding, I received a letter, handwritten. No return address, just 2 words scrolled in shaky ink: "You win." I didn't respond. I folded the letter, slid it into the back of the shadow box behind the ring, and closed the glass door gently. Because it was never about winning. It was about finally being free. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is silence.